Stop prompting. Start delegating. That's it. That's the whole shift. Most people who use AI every day are still on the wrong side of that line. Not because they're behind, because nobody ever explained the difference. Prompting is asking, delegating is handing something off and walking away. One of those scales, one of them doesn't. This episode is about the second one. This is Signal. I'm Renny Atkins. So here's the picture of how most people use AI right now. They open a tool, they ask it a question, they get an answer, they move on. And the tool that answers them, its values, its guardrails, its personality, its limits, those were all shaped by the company that built it, not by them. It was designed for every user simultaneously, which means it was designed for the average of all of them. And that's not a criticism, that's a description of the architecture. What you get when you just use the tool as is a very capable general intelligence that doesn't know who you are, what you're building, what matters to you, or what it's actually supposed to be doing in your life. You can get a lot of value from that, but it's not the same thing as building something that's yours. That's the difference between this episode, or what this episode, I should say, is about. So, what's the difference between a chatbot and an agent? A chatbot answers. An agent acts. A chatbot waits for your next question. An agent has a job to do. And the architecture is built for it to operate inside that job without needing you at every step. So here's the simple version. A chatbot is a conversation. An agent is a system. It has a role, a scope, a set of instructions that persist, and the ability to take action inside that role without being asked every single time. That's the whole architectural difference. Now, I'll be straight with you. My agents and I, aren't fully there yet. The tools are still catching up to the vision. But here's what I've learned. The structure matters even before it's perfect. When you define the role, write the brief, set the scope, you think differently about what you're building. And that thinking is where the real leverage starts. Now, I call mine digital employees. And I want to be clear about what I mean by that and what I don't. I don't mean it has judgment. I don't mean it decides when to override me. I don't mean it has ambition or shows up late for work or gets promoted. I call it an employee because that's how it functions in my workflow. It has a role. I've defined the scope of that role. It operates inside it, and I can hold it accountable to what it was built to do. That's not a metaphor. That's a design decision. The reason I use the word employee instead of tool is simple. Tools don't have briefs. Tools don't have roles. Tools don't have scope. When you start thinking of your agent as something you hired for a specific job, you automatically ask better setup questions. What is this for? What is it not for? What does it need to know? And what can it do without me asking? And what should it always flag? See, those are employee questions, and they produce better agent setups than asking what I can do with this thing. So, I want to take a second and show you a demo of me working with my agent. Okay, and so what you're seeing on screen, first of all, I had him publish, my agent is Jomo, by the way. I had him publish um, a YouTube video for me. And after he got finished with the publishing, I instruct him to go ahead and start preparing the social posts, starting with X. And you can see he executed the X post. And then I immediately prompt him to move on to LinkedIn. By the way, there are two ways in which your agent can interact with your system. He can use a mouse exactly the way you and I do and click around your machine, but he can also use APIs. And you saw the X was a demonstration of him using the API. So that's why you didn't see it on screen. And now you see him back to the mouse, click into LinkedIn, compose the post. Then you see the post happen live, voila. You see it on screen. Haha. So he composed and launched the post for LinkedIn. Then he comes back and he shows me what's going on. And then, where do we go from here, basically? Because that's the sequence that I wanted. Now, again, back to he used mouse clicks to operate LinkedIn. He used API to operate X. And then I say, okay, excellent. Can you show me the X post on this screen? Because you did it with API, which means I have not yet seen it. So now what you're going to see him is back to the mouse clicking. Show me the post on X. And there you go. That's the difference. That's the difference between a tool and a system. The system knows what it's for. So, how do you actually build your first one? You don't need a developer. You don't need a platform budget. You just need three things. One, you need a role. What is this agent for? Not what can it do? What is it for? And be specific. Be specific enough that you know when it's doing the wrong thing. Number two, you need a brief, which is just a document, a markdown file. I've talked about markdown files before, which are just a plain text note, whatever you use, that tells the agent who it's talking to, what matters, and how to behave. This is the document that makes the agent yours instead of anybody else's. And then thirdly, you need a scope. What can it do without you asking? What should it always check first? Where does its lane end? That's it. A role, a brief, and scope. Everything else is iteration. So you don't have to build Jomo on day one. Start with one agent that does one thing: an inbox, a filter, a first draft writer, a weekly brief summarizer. Something small, real, and useful enough that you notice if it stopped working. Build that. Run it for a week. Then decide what the next one is. Here's the thing about the move from prompting to delegation: it's not a technical upgrade, it's a cognitive one. You have to stop thinking about AI as something you talk to and start thinking about it as something you design. Design takes longer up front. It requires you to think through what you actually want before you ask for it. But once it's built, it runs. That's the shift the next decade is going to reward. Not the people who prompt the fastest, but the people who build the most useful system. Your first digital employee doesn't need to be sophisticated, it just needs to exist. This is Signal. I'm Renny Atkins. And if you want more of this kind of thinking in between episodes, get the Signal brief at brief.rennyatkins.com.